Dallas is huge, and if you're relocating here, it's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to figure out where to live. Now let's jump into today's video, which is about Lake Highlands. If you spent any time researching Dallas neighborhoods, there's a good chance Lake Highlands hasn't come up quite as much as Uptown or Richardson or Plano, and that's exactly why I wanted to make this video. Lake Highlands is one of those neighborhoods that locals talk about, but people relocating from out of state often overlook it simply because it doesn't get as much mainstream attention. And in this video, I'll walk you through what makes Lake Highlands worth a serious look, what the housing market looks like in 2026, and who this neighborhood actually is a great fit for. And let's start with the location, because this is where Lake Highlands really easily stands out. Lake Highlands is northeast of Dallas, is tucked away near White Rock Lake, US Highway 75, and LBJ Freeway. So it's kind of right in between those three. That puts you about 15 minutes from downtown Dallas and gives you quick access to both 75 and 635. So getting to North Dallas, Richardson, and Plano is relatively simple. If you work downtown or in the telecom corridor, Lake Highlands puts you close enough to avoid a brutal commute without putting you right in the middle of all of the congestion. One of the neighborhood's biggest draws is the proximity, though, to White Rock Lake, which honestly is one of my favorite places in Dallas. You're not right on the lake, but you're close enough to it to where it becomes part of your everyday life. Running the trail, kayaking on the weekends, or just watching the sunset over the water after work is really close to there, so you'll be able to spend quite a bit of time there. And there's also White Rock Creek Trail, which runs directly through Lake Highlands and connects to the Katy Trail system. And if you're someone who wants to walk, run, bike without hopping into a car, then this really does give you an advantage. Families are drawn to Lake Highlands for another reason too. The ongoing transformation of the area, especially Skillman Street, Walnut Hill, has been going on for years, and this stretch has always felt a little dated, but over the past several years, the city and private developers have poured money into new mixed-use development, restaurants and retail. Older strip centers have been replaced with walkable shopping and dining, and it's changed the feel of the neighborhood significantly. That's part of what makes Lake Highlands interesting right now in 2026. You're getting an established neighborhood with mature trees and character, but also you have some new development that's filling in, and you often don't get those both at the same time. Now let's talk about the schools, because this is usually the deciding factor for a lot of buyers, especially if they're new to the area. Lake Highlands is served by Richardson ISD, which carries a strong reputation across North Texas. And then Lake Highlands High School specifically has built a loyal following, and a lot of families move here and simply never move away. Be sure to check niche.com and greatschools.org for specific school ratings on individual campuses, since it can vary block to block. With regard to the housing market, Lake Highlands in 2026 is a mix of original 1960s and 1970s ranch-style homes, updated remodels, and a growing number of newer builds on lots where older homes have been torn down. Home prices generally range from about the high 300,000s for original unrenovated homes up to 700,000 for, fully remodeled new construction. That's a wide range, which actually works in your favor. There's more flexibility here than a lot of Dallas neighborhoods where price band is much tighter. Compared to somewhere else like the M Streets, you're generally getting more square footage in Lakewood and a larger lot for the same money that you would pay in Lake Highlands. Now that doesn't mean there aren't trade-offs, because so many of the homes are original construction from the 1960s and 70s, and you'll want to budget updates, foundation, plumbing, electrical, roofing, all of those major things. I'd encourage you to get the home inspected closely before you're buying. Some homes have been beautifully renovated and others haven't been touched in decades. So you can get a fair mix of the two. And the difference between the two can be significant in price, depending on how renovated it is or if it's in the original condition. And then traffic is another factor worth mentioning. LBJ Freeway on the neighborhood's northern edge can get congested during rush hour, and depending on where your home sits in the neighborhood, that can add a few minutes onto your commute even to get onto the freeway. I'd suggest dropping a few addresses in Google Maps and toggling between the times of day to get a realistic sense of what your drive time would actually look like before purchasing. Another thing to be upfront about is consistency because Lake Highlands doesn't have the same kind of conservation districts or HOA restrictions you'll find in other neighborhoods like the M Streets. You can end up with a beautifully renovated home right next to one that hasn't been touched since it was built. So some buyers, that's really not a big deal, but if you want a neighborhood where every block feels, polished, uniform, Lake Highlands probably isn't the place for you. Retail is also catching up. Yeah, the redevelopment around Skillman and Walnut Hill has made a big difference, but Lake Highlands still doesn't have walkable restaurants or a really big shopping scene that you get in a place like Lakewood or the M Streets. You'll likely have to be driving a good chunk out of your day to run errands rather than just like walking around and being able to shop. So how does Lake Highlands compare to some nearby areas? I mean, compared to Richardson, Lake Highlands gets you closer to downtown Dallas, but Richardson generally offers newer infrastructure and a slightly more established retail scene right now. And then compared to Lakewood, Lake Highlands is more affordable and gives you, more space. But Lakewood has that closer to the lake, walk to everything kind of feel that Lake Highlands is still working towards. So who is Lake Highlands really best for? If you want proximity to White Rock Lake and downtown Dallas without, paying Lakewood prices, this neighborhood deserves a serious look. If strong schools matter to you, Richardson ISD gives you, better peace of mind in that sense. And if you don't mind putting some work into an older home in exchange for some space and a better price, Lake Highlands might be exactly what you're looking for. At the end of the day, Lake Highlands is a neighborhood in the middle of a transformation, and buying now means getting in before that transformation is complete. And like I mentioned before, Dallas can be overwhelming. If you're trying to narrow down your options, we help you do that in 3 easy steps. The first one is to schedule a Zoom call. I'll ask you some questions about specifically what it is that you're wanting. And then the second thing is allow me to create a customized plan, and we'll create that plan together, very specific to you and your family. And then step 3, we'll find the perfect home together. You'll find my contact information in the description below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.